Welcome to the Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Welcome, everybody, to the 2021 Dalton CRA Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony. My name is Dustin Belcher. I'm the Director of Recreation for the Dalton CRA, and I proudly serve as the Chairman of the Hall of Fame. I would like to begin by thanking Wacona Country Club for hosting us again this year, and Eric Shepard and Silverwhip Media for providing the videos for today's celebration. In addition, I would like to thank Ken Whitestone, who will be taking photographs today and has been with us all weekend. Thank you. What a great weekend it has been. Friday night at the football game, we got to see our Warriors beat PHS. It was a great way to kick things off. And yesterday, what an event at the CRA on the lawn, and in the Hall of Fame room, and in the gym with Larry Moore and the baseball in the Berkshire sliding back to home. Coach Campbell had some great interviews and to share your story, and to watch our inductees walk through the Hall of Fame room for the first time with their pictures and artifacts was awesome. A special thank you to Eric Payson and Tommy O'Connor, who spent countless hours preparing the Hall of Fame room. I'd also like to thank Dan Hamilton for playing music on the lawn yesterday during our event. Today is a special day as we honor another incredible class of coaches, contributors, teams, and athletes. In 2019, a vision was created to share the stories of yesterday and to celebrate the great contributors, coaches, teams, and athletes that have created the foundation of our strong athletic programs. The CRA Athletic Hall of Fame Executive Committee put in a tremendous amount of work to create this vision. I would like to thank Executive Committee members Gary Campbell, Joanne Dowling, Pat West, and Jackie McLaughlin. In addition to our executive committee, we have a nomination committee that reviews all the nominations, hundreds of nominations that have come in. They create a list of potential inductees. I'd like to thank Dan McMahon, Jen Brandy, Chris Dumas, Brian Farley, Bethany Hagmeyer, Sarah Hamilton, Mark Cayley, Matt Morrison, Ken Pease, Brian Pupor, Jim West, and Dave Whitcomb. And a huge thank you to our event committee, who put on this 3-day event for us and has done it for the last 3 years. Each time a challenge comes their way, they pivot and they find a way to put on a first-class event. Thank you so much to our event committee, Jen Belcher, Lynn and Greg Berry, Wendy Dumas, Mary Manella, Sue Morrison, and Connie West. Thank you. Lastly, I'd like to thank Allison Peters, the Executive Director of the CRA, and our entire CRA staff for their support and help with the Hall of Fame event. The CRA Hall of Fame was created to recognize those that have had an incredible impact on our community. It was our goal to be a true Hall of Fame, a physical room that would be put on display for those inductees so their stories could be told of those great athletes, coaches, contributors, and teams from yesterday, while still raising funds to address the increasing need for financial assistance in our community. It is our mission to make sure that every child has a chance to write their story regardless of their financial situation. In addition, we wanted to keep the cost of youth sports affordable in town and expand the programming that we offered financial assistance for. None of this would have been possible without the generosity of our founding sponsors who donated the initial seed money for the project, David and Susan Lombard, and they supported the Hall of Fame from day one. David and Susan not only made a significant financial contribution, but began meeting with individuals about supporting our vision. Quickly, our vision became a reality. Joining the Lombards as founding sponsors, the W. Murray Crane trustees, the Berkshire Taconic Foundation, Feigenbaum Foundation, Helen and Michael Caulfield, Chris and Kim Matthews, and Hill Engineers, Architects, and Planners. Have a nice hand for our founding sponsors. In addition to our founding sponsors, we have over 80 local businesses and alumni that have given to the Hall of Fame over the last 3 years. Their support is what keeps us going and has allowed us to award over $20,000 in financial assistance to children in our community for youth sports since the Hall of Fame began. A nice hand for all of our sponsors. The community we live in is unique. It's a great community. And no matter where your physical address might be today, this is home. One of the great parts of this event is we bring back our local heroes to tell their stories. We celebrate statistics, but we must first give recognition to those that have worked so hard behind the scenes. Our contributors, like our inductees today, David and Susan Lombard, who we would not be here today without their support. Contributors like Norman Pop Smith, who worked at the YMCA, which is the DYC today, for over 50 years. Our tradition of excellence does not exist without the dedication and quiet leadership of people like Jim Horth, who dedicated much of his life to making our community a better place, and his impact is still felt today. Impact. How about these coaches that we're inducting today? Paul Hermanski coached hundreds of youth football players in our flag football program for over 30 years. Al Devereaux, a beloved cross-country and track coach whose success is in a league of his own. And Larry Moore, whose imprint remains in the boys soccer program in this community. He turned the program into a Western Mass contender and brought us home our first championship in 1981. That 1981 Wacona boys soccer team will also be inducted today. Their story of toughness, grit, and passion is what showed the way for future teams in our soccer program. Speaking of showing the way, today we will induct the 1970 Wacona boys basketball team, a special team as they brought Wacona their first Western Mass championship. History will be shared today. History is something the 2011 Wacona softball team knows something about. They will join this great class of inductees as the only softball team in Berkshire County to ever win a state championship. As we induct the third class of great coaches, contributors, and teams, we will also induct some of the finest athletes to ever represent this community. You will hear incredible stories and statistics today, but the greatest contributions will be in their stories. Let's start with Tom Garvey, an all-Western Mass football player who scored the first touchdown at Wacona. Today we'll induct fine baseball pitchers to join the likes of Jeff Riordan, Matt White, and Turk Wendell, with Don Cormier, who was drafted to play in the minors and dominated in the 1950s. Basketball and baseball star Mike Callahan, who also was drafted in the early 1980s by the Houston Astros organization. Decades apart, they shared a common bond. They were dominating pitchers. Pitching doesn't stop there, though. This afternoon, we will induct Kim Reynolds Wells, who, in Mike Cooney's words, brought the Wacona softball program to a whole new level. She was the Berkshire County MVP both her junior and senior year. This class has no shortage of MVPs. Cara Cornell Keegan, Hartwick College swimming and diving MVP. Greg Knoll, Berkshire County's most valuable player in basketball in 2003. Brian Mcgovern, Fran Murowski, and Mark Cayley were three incredible three-sport athletes, and they were all MVPs. Three-sport athletes, how about Sarah Hamilton, the youngest athlete to be inducted into our Hall of Fame, and she won over 200 games wearing a Wacona uniform. This afternoon will be about the stories, how we share a common bond, a community that has always been driven by being the best small town around. And it is my great honor to stand here this afternoon to induct this very worthy third class of the CRA Hall of Fame. At this time, I'm going to ask Gary Campbell to come to the podium to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you, Dustin, and let's give an applause for Dustin, who's been the point guard for all of this. He's worked tirelessly for this, and the passion, you can hear it in his voice, certainly echoes exactly what our community is all about. It's my pleasure to introduce Wacona Regional High School Principal Aaron Robb as our keynote speaker today, as we celebrate all our Hall of Famers, and congratulations to everybody in the room being inducted tonight. I want everybody to understand that Aaron continues to work tirelessly himself here for all the Central Berkshire towns and for all who reside here. We all know him as a principal, and certainly he is one that has been a leader in so many other areas as well. Aaron was a captain of the baseball team at Wacona and the football team. And after graduating from Western New England College, not we knew now, but Western New England College, graduated from there, he circled on back after a stop at another school. I don't mention other schools, it's just Wacona. So after a stop at another school, he circled back to Wacona to teach history, to coach football, to coach baseball. And as the head coach of the Wacona baseball team, he led our Warriors to the state championship game in 2007. Aaron has also been instrumental in growing awareness and opportunities for challenged students and athletes through Buddy Walk, Buddy Games, and our very successful unified sports programs at the high school. On top of that, there's a small project that's happening called the New Wacona School Building Project. I don't know if you've seen it, but Aaron is knee-deep in it and pretty busy. I think he needs more to do, honestly, but he's knee-deep in it. I just think at the end of the day, people like this are what exactly lead our community. And why we are who we are is because we have great leaders. And I'd like to introduce our great leader, Aaron Robb.
Aaron Robb is a 1991 graduate of Wacona Regional High School. Growing up in the small town of Cummington, he met many new friends as he joined the football and baseball teams at Wacona. A captain of both teams, Aaron was a part of winning the Western Mass title in 1991 in baseball. His teammates talk about him being a team-first guy who treated his teammates and coaches like family. Aaron learned early in life the importance of family through the incredible example set by his parents David and Barbara, who supported and encouraged both Aaron and his brother Dana to pursue their dreams and to always make those around them better. Aaron and his wife Lynn are the proud parents of Hayden, Lily, and Colby and have continued that same tradition with their family. These are the same qualities that make Aaron a great leader in our community. After high school, he attended Western New England University and pursued a career in education. From 1997 to 2012, Mr. Robb taught history and inspired his students daily in the classroom. When the final bell rang at the end of the school day, you could find him on the football field or the baseball diamond, sharing his passion for sports and coaching his students. Aaron served as an assistant football coach, JV baseball coach, and the varsity baseball coach of Wacona. In 2007, he led the baseball team to the state championship game after capturing the Western Central Massachusetts title. In 2012, he served as the vice principal at Wacona High School for 4 years before becoming principal. His title changed, but his perspective remained the same as he became the leader of the Wacona family. Always leading by example, Aaron can be found supporting his students at school and community events. His efforts to raise awareness about adaptive programming created new opportunities that hadn't existed for students with disabilities. He was instrumental in working with the CRA to start the Buddy Baseball program, working with his staff and the MIAA to start Unified Athletics, and his leadership of the Down Syndrome Family Group of Berkshire County was critical as he helped to organize the popular Buddy Walk each fall. In 2020, when schools were forced to close, Aaron once again found a way to make sure he could continue to support and be there for his Wacona family. He started to do weekly videos on social media and his very popular drive-by check-ins to make sure his students were doing okay. The community is fortunate to count him as one of its most important members and leaders. We are proud to have Aaron Robb as the keynote speaker of the 2021 Dalton CRA Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Robb.
My daughter's sitting in the front row laughing at me right now. You have detention on Monday. First of all, thank you, Gary. First of all, it means a great deal that Gary introduced me, a Hall of Fame coach. You're going to get many accolades when it's all said and done, but a Hall of Fame person in my book. You really mean a lot to me. I appreciate that. I'd like to start by thanking the Dalton CRA for asking me to be part of this wonderful event. Earlier in the summer, Dustin texted me asking if I could do him a little favor. And little did I know the favor was going to evolve into giving the keynote at the Hall of Fame induction. I attended the first Hall of Fame event a couple years ago, but I was not involved in the virtual event last year. So I asked Dustin, who gave the keynote last year? And he nonchalantly said, Jim Duquette. You know, the Wacona Williams College sports legend, former New York Mets general manager, current MLB network analyst, and the guy who also donated his kidney to his daughter. That Jim Duquette. So yeah, no problem, Dustin. I'll do the keynote for you. Back when COVID first hit, Charlie Bradshaw's keynote speaker for what turned out to be the 2020 virtual senior assembly at Wacona canceled on him, and he ended up asking me to fill in instead, so I can only assume that some big name canceled on Dustin for this keynote, and now here I am. In all seriousness, I'm truly honored to be standing here today to help kick off this incredible event. I'm a big believer in the mission of the Dalton CRA and feel very fortunate to live in a community where such an organization exists. My wife Lynn and I have lived here in Dalton for 22 years. We made the conscious decision to make this our permanent home because we wanted our children to grow up in a wonderful community with access to all that the CRA has to offer. I must admit, however, that I am not a native Daltonian. We'll let that settle in. I've been a proud resident of Central Berkshire my entire life, but I happened to grow up in the great town of Cummington. And back in the 1970s and 80s, Hilltown kids like me didn't really have the same degree of access to CRA programming like they do now. The Dalton and Hinsdale kids seem to be the ones who are reaping the benefits. So while the CRA kids were taking part in summer programs at Pine Grove Park and Chamberlain Park, I was living in relative isolation in Cummington, tipping cows and wrestling bears. While Dalton and Hinsdale kids were trying out for all-star travel teams, I was baling hay and taking part in contests to see who could hold on to an electric fence the longest. True story, true story. It was a good, simple life. The reality is that I literally had no clue about the CRA growing up. I didn't have any clue about the house leagues, the all-star games, the all-star teams. I had very little knowledge about Wacona when I was growing up. Back then, the old Cummington school went up to 6th grade, so I didn't even go to Nessicus until the 7th grade. And looking back, I suppose my parents never told me about the CRA as a kid, because that would mean they'd have to drive me to Dalton all the time. But once I hit 7th grade, I started to understand what the CRA was and what it meant to our community. My parents signed me up for Babe Ruth baseball, and later that summer, I headed into 8th grade. My parents signed me up for CRA soccer camp. It was the first time the CRA had offered a soccer camp up in Cummington at our town ball field. And I can only assume the CRA was hoping to recruit some of the corn-fed country boys like myself to play soccer. So after a week of soccer camp, a pretty unsuccessful week, I might add, Johnny Kovacs and Jim West, who were running the camp, sat me down and said, "Did you have fun this week?" I politely lied and said yes. And then there was an awkward pause, and they looked at me and said, "So, did you know Wacona has a football team?" That worked out, Cal, didn't it? All joking aside, that rough week at soccer camp was a real turning point for me because that is when I started thinking about Wacona football and naturally baseball as well. My parents weren't going to drive me to games or anything like that. They had enough going on at the time, and we didn't have the internet or social media. So during my 2 years in middle school, I started to follow Wacona athletics in the newspaper. My parents always bought the Daily Hampshire Gazette out of Northampton, but I convinced them to start buying the Berkshire Eagle instead. So all through middle school, I read the Eagle sports section every single day. I was infatuated with the 1986 baseball team that made its way to the state championship, and yet I did not watch one inning of their games. I followed the '87 boys basketball team's epic run to glory, having never seen a game, and was filled with pride to find out the next day in the paper that it was Timo Norris, a Cummington kid, who sunk the basket to win the state championship. Side note, I was not allowed to play with him in town park. I just want to let you know. Long story. The Eagle sports section was my connection to Wacona until I got there myself. I'm very proud to say that I've been connected to Wacona as a student, athlete, teacher, coach, parent, and administrator since the fall of 1987, and I've loved every single minute of it. And while I confess I did not get to see some of our inductees play or have the privilege of knowing all of them personally, I did have the good fortune of knowing many of them. I did not know two of our Hall of Fame contributors, Jim Horth and Pop Smith, but I'm very much aware of the imprint they left on our community. Pop Smith's legacy is based on the fact that he was a key contributor to the CRA's most formative years, and Mr. Horth's legacy is not only based on his contributions to the community, which you'll hear about later, but in the rich legacy of his family, who I'm actually seated with today, and their contributions to the CRA and Wacona as well. I do have the honor of knowing David and Susan Lombard, however, and as a matter of fact, I either get a visit, email, or phone call from Mr. Lombard several times a year. Today was a good check-in. His check-ins and efforts to stay connected to Wacona is indicative of the Lombard's love of our school. And on a personal level, I sincerely appreciate his sage advice as we've navigated our way through the last couple of years. I do have the pleasure of knowing all of our coaching inductees this year, starting with Paul Hermanski. I did a brief stint as a flag football coach when my youngest son first started out, but it was quite clear that the flag football field and the softball outfield at Pine Grove was the house that Hermanski built. Coach Devereaux, though I doubt he remembers me, taught me PE from 1978 to 1980 when I was in kindergarten and first grade at the old Crane Community School at the top of Windsor Mountain. For some strange reason, I thought he had the coolest Jeep. I'm pretty sure it was a powder blue Land Rover, if I'm not mistaken. And I have had the honor of knowing Larry Moore for a very long time. While you'll hear all of his accolades as a coach, I'm particularly thankful for his work in building the baseball in the Berkshires Museum. He has carefully curated and promoted the rich history of baseball in our relatively small county. Unfortunately, I don't remember the 1970 boys basketball team's exploits, but that's not my fault. I was born 3 years later. But the names on that team are recognizable, like Glenn Campbell and, of course, Brian Pupor, who I had the honor of calling a colleague for many years at Wacona. I don't recall the 1981 boys soccer team either because I was very much focused on my career as a second grader. But there are many people on that team I'm happy to say that I know, including my friend Mike Cayley, who is our head custodian at Wacona, and he's the absolute best. And then there's the 2011 Wacona softball team, which was and still is Berkshire County's only state champion in softball. And I'm firmly convinced that it's going to be Wacona that's going to get the second one day. No pressure. I'm very pleased to say that I know all of them because I had them in class. But what I remember most of all was being able to bring my family to their state championship game at Worcester State, particularly my daughter, so my kids could see firsthand as their future high school made some history. And then there's our individual inductees. We have Don Cormier and Mike Callahan, who are accomplished athletes, particularly in baseball, and we have Tom Garvey, who will go down in history as the first player to score a touchdown at the first new Wacona. While I never knew them personally, I have always heard great stories about them. We have Fran Morowski, Cara, Keegan, Mark Cayley, and Kim Wells, who all preceded me as students at Wacona, but over time I had the privilege of getting to know them personally during that time and watching them exercise their generosity by giving back to the community that helped to raise them. And finally, we have Greg Knoll, Sarah Hamilton, and Brian Mcgovern. I was a relatively new teacher at Wacona when Greg Knoll was robotically draining threes in our old gym. He sure was a treat to watch on the court, and to this day, I've never seen anything like him. I did have the privilege of having Sarah Hamilton in class, and although she's being inducted for her incredible career as a student athlete, she also belongs in the Hall of Fame, honoring those who are simply great people. I do need to take a moment to offer a couple of personal reflections about Brian Mcgovern, however. It'll be fine, don't worry. Brian, is Brian here? No. Mom is? Oh, gosh. Brian was 2 years behind me in school and was a teammate of mine on both the football and baseball teams. When I was a senior, he became our starting quarterback as a sophomore. He stood out in our offensive system as a highly mobile quarterback who was able to create plays because of his athleticism. And on the baseball field as a sophomore, he was our ace on the mound. We would not have won the Western Mass Championship in '91 if it weren't for Brian. He was a tough, gritty competitor, and I can safely say that I am truly grateful to have had the opportunity to play on the same teams with him. I am particularly excited for the story of the year that the CRA Hall of Fame committee chose for this event. They will be honoring all of the girls' championship teams from the last school year: volleyball, soccer, basketball, lacrosse, cheer, and softball. All of them won some sort of championship in the midst of COVID last year. It took plenty of resilience to simply get through last year, so for all of our girls' sports teams to excel in spite of it all shows the tenacity and spirit of our girls' athletic program at Wacona. As a matter of fact, our class of 2021 female athletes reminded me very much of Sarah Hamilton and many of the others in that incredible class of 2011. I frequently think about what might have been had we been actually able to run state tournaments last year. COVID may have robbed our student athletes of some of their proper hardware, but they will certainly be remembered for their athletic prowess. Before I close, I'd like to leave you with a couple thoughts that have been ringing in my mind since Dustin texted me this summer. I spoke a moment ago about finding a way to stay connected with Wacona through the Berkshire Eagle sports pages, and during that time, never did I ever envision that I would one day become a principal of that school. And never in a million years did I think I'd be on the verge of opening a brand new Wacona that was built in the middle of a pandemic. But here we are. In my time doing what I do, I have learned that good communities, strong communities, take care of their kids. Over the course of my years at Wacona and the various hats that I've worn, what I've learned about our school and our community is not only do we take good care of our kids, it's actually the kids who are the ones who ultimately bring us together. In an era when we seem quite content to believe what we want to believe, to disagree about whether to build a new school or not, or debate whether to wear a mask or not, or draw battle lines about whether to get vaccinated or not, we as a community always find a way to rally around our kids. Our kids help us to melt away some of that adult entrenchment I speak of, because our kids are on the same teams with absolutely no care in the world for what we think about politics or public health policy. That's what pushes us to come together as a community, and it's institutions like the CRA and Wacona that serve as the rudder as we navigate the stormy societal seas. The CRA and Wacona amplify the importance of community. Another thing that I've learned in my various roles is that strong communities make sure to include all of our kids. As principal of Wacona, I'm extremely proud of many aspects of our school, but I am probably most proud of our efforts to include students with disabilities, not only in the classroom, but on the athletic fields as well. Our unified athletic program teams students with and without disabilities in MIAA-sanctioned sporting events, including championships. We are entering our 5th year as a unified school, fielding a unified basketball team and a unified track and field team, which actually won a state championship in 2019. We beat Brockton. We've been the leader in unified athletics in Berkshire County, and thankfully have been followed by Hoosick, Mount Greylock, and PHS here in Berkshire County starting this fall. All of that hard work was recognized a couple of years ago when we were selected by ESPN and the Special Olympics as one of a handful of schools in the entire nation to be named a new National Unified Champion School, a distinction that will stand the test of time. Our community's inclusive efforts are not just isolated at the high school. The CRA has been involved in more grassroots efforts that I would argue is unmatched when it comes to local community recreation associations. Since 2008, they have sponsored a buddy baseball program in the fall, splash swim program in the winter, and have co-sponsored inclusive efforts with the Dalton Ballet Studio as well. Good communities, strong communities, take care of their kids, and they make sure to include all of their kids. It's important that we take a moment to acknowledge that we are that community. And in spite of all that is going on in the world, it's our children who will always bring us together. Thank you all, and congratulations to this year's Hall of Fame inductees.
Thank you to Mr. Rob for giving a great keynote address. Now he can start answering my texts again. After that text, he doesn't answer my texts anymore, so he can start answering them again. Next up, we are going to recognize our Story of the Year. And to introduce our Story of the Year, Executive Committee member Joanne Dowling will introduce the Story of the Year.
Story of the Year, the 2020-21 Wacona Girls Championship teams. The CRA Athletic Hall of Fame would like to honor and recognize our girls' sports teams that won championships in the 2020-21 school year. The COVID-19 pandemic forced many of our teams to compete only within Berkshire County, and our girls' teams dominated each season. The Wacona basketball, softball, volleyball, lacrosse, and soccer teams all captured Berkshire County titles, and the Wacona cheer team brought home a state championship. The teams had the Berkshire County MVP in all 5 sports and a combined record of 69 wins, 7 losses, and 1 tie. In addition to all these titles, we also saw Maria Gambaroni set a new scoring record in basketball at Wacona High School.
The Story of the Year. The story of the year is that Wacona girls dominated sports in Berkshire County. And what a year it's been. A year when so much was lost, it seemed like the Wacona girls didn't know how to lose. After a year when spring sports were canceled in 2020, and there was a thing that was now called Fall 2 sports, practice and contests were played with masks and in front of virtually no fans except if you tuned into the live stream. Coaches, players, and families toughed it out, and the results were incredible. 6 Wacona girls teams finished the year that almost didn't happen with unbelievable records, taking with them 5 Berkshire County championships, 5 MVP awards, 1 state championship, and 1 undefeated season. And along the way, Maria Gambaroni broke the all-time scoring record in basketball at Wacona. Not just girls basketball, all basketball, as her team posted their undefeated season. Here are the teams and team representatives with their coaches. First, the cheer team with Coach Nikki DeMassimo, Shayna Collins, and Brittany Gaudette. Come on up. Next, representing the basketball team, assistant coach Dan McMahon with Eva Eberwine, Emma Belcher, and Ella Quinto. The Wacona soccer team with coach Meg Smith, players Molly Shippey, Claire Neff, and Quinn Walton. You're already up here, all right. The volleyball team. Coach Dave Lucier and players Olivia Weiner and Mackenzie LeBear. The lacrosse team. Coach Kathy Budai, Claire Neff, and Eva Eberwine again. And the softball team, Coach Dustin Belcher with players Emma Belcher, Olivia Weiner, Lily Robb, and Ella Quinto. The class of 2021 Hall of Fame Story of the Year.
One of my favorite things about this event and being a part of the committee is just learning and then telling you the stories of everything. And I've heard of Norman Pop Smith, and I think we've heard of it through the Youth of the Year, Norman Pop Smith Award, but I didn't really know the story. Norman Pop Smith was the epitome of when you get knocked down, you get back up. And if you didn't know, I didn't know, his journey started by being laid off as a carpenter at the old Berkshire Mill in 1912. Now, for most of us, when we get laid off and things go bad, well, we all go bad. Instead, he wandered up the hill to the Dalton YMCA, where, as is known, is the Dalton Youth Center. And he went in, not only asked for a job, but how can I help? It's the opposite, not being down, picking yourself up. And when he did that, that started his journey that lasted 55 years of service to our youth in Dalton. That's from 1912 to 1967. Hard to wrap your head around that a little bit, but an amazing accomplishment. Imagine what kind of experience that was. A couple of things that you should know. Dalton at that time had no idea, obviously, that Pop was going to spend that 57 years helping at the YMCA. He became the most familiar figure to local youth in the past half century. Pop had the total respect of all the youth in Dalton. He had a genuine interest in every young man that entered through the doors of the youth center, and he held the youth to the highest degree of character and development, much like himself. A couple other things. I never realized the youth center had a rifle range under there. Never realized they had a bowling alley under there. Lived here most of my life, did not get it. In fact, the story of that is he allowed some kids down there on their honor system to use the rifle range. Unfortunately, it didn't go well. Pop went downstairs and the lights were out. The kids literally shot the lights out of the building. Pop was a big enough guy to pull them out by their ears and throw them out for a little while. Told them not to come back until they learned how to behave. So some discipline went with it. He also went to Pittsfield once a week to pick up candy and soda supplies that he was in charge of at the YMCA. He would do anything for the youth. Pop was honored in April of 1966 with a trophy night at the banquet for his 54 years of service. He continued service, obviously, and he retired in 1967 after his years of service at the YMCA. He passed away at the age of 89 years old in 1970, a true loss. And someone who would know quite a bit about the history of this, Craig Crozier, quote, "I cannot think of another person who influenced and had such a positive effect on the youth of Dalton more than Pop Smith. He was an amazing man." Here's his story.
The year was 1912, when Norman Pop Smith had just been laid off as a carpenter from the old Berkshire Mill. Pop stopped by the YMCA, currently the Dalton Youth Center, looking for part-time work. He worked behind the service desk and ran all activities on the main floor. The gymnasium at the YMCA was the home of the high school basketball team until 1922. In 1966, a banquet was held at the CRA to honor Pop Smith for his 54 years of service to our community. He became the most familiar figure to local youth in our community, earning the total respect of all the kids, holding them to the highest degree of character and development. Since his passing in 1970, the CRA has annually recognized a boy and girl of the year for their volunteering in the community by awarding them the Norman Pop Smith Award.
Accepting this award on his behalf, Craig Crozier. Our next one, contributor, Mr. Jim Horth. I'm so excited to be able to introduce him as a contributor here. The awards are simple. Many years as a youth basketball coach, 14 years in the 70s and 80s. helping out with the Earl B. Crozier Fishing Derby, DYC Mini Carnival. Those of you that remember that, one of the great things of my childhood growing up here. But beyond that, the United Way, DYC board member and president, founding member of the Wacona High School Sports Booster Club, working with the Dalton Council of Aging as a committee member, and also a award member of the Gibb Kittredge Award in 1977. Beyond that, what we can learn from him is that we can all jump in. Talking with his son Pete yesterday with our Share Your Story, that's what clearly came through from him. Just jump in. Jump in 2 feet. Don't put your toe in. Jump in. And that's what Jim Horth did. Yes, athletics, and especially basketball, was a focus, but he also did all those other committees and involved in the Dalton Select Advisory Committee, St. Agnes Charity Drives, and even the Town Hall renovation. He jumped 2 feet in to our community. I have to say, on a side note, he wasn't a bad athlete himself. I was lucky enough to coach his grandson, Wes Horth, and we were down at Lee, and Wes took a kickback, and we're watching film on Sunday with the coaches, and there goes Wes down the sideline. But I noticed a gentleman running outside the fans, outside the ropes, and I was like, wow, he's pretty quick. And I was like, who is that? Wes on Monday goes, that was my grandfather. I said, Jim's pretty quick. Does he got any eligibility left? So 2 feet in. 2 feet in as a participant and helping people. 2 feet in as a spectator. 2 feet in, jumped in as a family member. And you can see that today, obviously, with his children helping in our community. Jim Horth, his family was an absolute source of pride, and his love watching them on the fields and courts and competing was huge. Pete Horth is here to accept on his father's behalf. Here's Jim Horth's story.
Jim Horth was a longtime volunteer for the Dalton Youth Center and the CRA. Jim coached for 14 years in the youth basketball program and served on the DYC Board of Governors for many years, helping to coordinate youth programs such as the Earl B. Crozier Fishing Derby and the annual Mini Carnival. In addition to his volunteering at the CRA, Jim was a founding member of the Wacona Warriors Booster Club, which supported athletes in all sports at the high school level. In 1977, the CRA honored Jim's dedication to the youth in our community by selecting him to be the recipient of the Gibb Kittredge Award. In 2009, the CRA renamed their boys basketball tournament the Jim Horth Memorial Basketball Tournament in remembrance of all that Jim did for the basketball program in our community.
Accepting this award on his father's behalf and family, Pete Horth. Our next contributor, and I probably should have said before, the contributors are the glue. Such fantastic athletes and coaches and everyone around we have here in town, but without these contributors, we don't stand a chance, and especially who I'm going to introduce now. David and Susan Lombard. Every community, successful community, needs a spark, needs someone to step up, and when I think of the Lombards, I think of challenge and action. They will challenge you, and it puts everybody into action. And few people can do that. Conversations with David Lombard, whether it be about the track, whether it be about any facets here in our community, are awesome. And they are challenging. And I don't mean tough. It means, let's go. What can we do? How do we solve this problem? It gets you to go into action. And that spark is clear here. We do not have this event without the Lombards. So we thank you very much for that. This is a time in which we got to continue it. And I guarantee you, after this particular event, he will challenge us again. And you know what? We will accept that challenge. And we will go forward. And I love that about talking with David and Susan and their family. And I have to mention the family, Derek, here with his family and his daughter, also Bethany. Great family here in town. Very much a giving family, not just athletics, but let me tell you a little bit. Obviously a founding member here of the Hall of Fame. Wacona Regional High School track, donated in 1993. And again, sparks action. I was there this summer, and there was a young man running around the track, and I lucky enough to know him, a kid named Leighton. And he's up there, and he's a college track athlete now. And he's up there using the track every single morning. I guarantee you, because of that track, somewhere when he was young, he said, I'm going to do something here. That thought, that spark, created action. Amazing. Lead benefactor in the Dalton Senior Center. Berkshire Community College concession stand on, is it Delia Field? Dedicated in 2021. Dalton Youth coached basketball for 5 years. All these things were involvement that he challenged, whether it was kids, whether it was adults, to get into action. This is David and Susan Lombard's story.
David and Susan Lombard's incredible generosity has helped to provide opportunities for the athletes in our community. On September 22nd, 1993, David and Susan gifted the 400-meter track to the students of Wacona Regional High School and the residents of our community. For decades, this track has been the home of some of our greatest athletes and greatest sports moments in our school's history. The Lombards' contributions run deeper than just in high school athletics, volunteering to coach youth basketball, donating funds for the youth mission trips each year, and being the benefactors of the Dalton Senior Center, to name a few. In addition to all of this, David and Susan Lombard are founding members and sponsors for the Dalton CRA Athletic Hall of Fame.
On behalf of every coach, athlete, and the CRA, thank you, David and Susan Lombard. Congratulations.
A good coach is patient, selfless, committed, knowledgeable, organized, respectful, and a good motivator. They care about their players beyond the scope of the sport and can get a team to believe and play for something bigger than themselves, and pushes their players to do their best, knowing their full potential. They believe in their players, their team, listen to and learn from them with honest and open communication, making them truly believe that your team is your family. They know when to step up and stand back, believe in you when you don't believe in yourself, and are afraid to give you the feedback you need, not necessarily the feedback you want to hear. But they can't do all of this alone. A good coach also has some really good assistants and good players that have come from an amazing youth program, something that we all know we have been blessed to have here in this community. Today we get to honor Coach Hermanski, Coach Devereaux, and Coach Moore. Thank you for truly exemplifying all the qualities of a good coach. Coach Paul Hermanski. Hermie. Before I talk about his coaching career, I must begin with his involvement in the inception of Dalton's semi-pro baseball team, the Dalton Collegians. It started with Dan Duquette and Mike Casey, but from there, Hermie, Dan, and Dennis Duquette all worked hard, fundraising and getting donations from local businesses to fund this team. As a player on the team for 13 years, he had quick bat speed. Other guys on the team were physically bigger than Hermie, players like Fran Murowski, Alex Pyers, Paul Pierce, Ron Bartlett, Rocky Daly, Rick and Joe Murphy, Steve Messina, Jim Duquette, and Kevin Kinney. But he was a power hitter, right-handed batter that teams were nervous about when he came to the plate. They played in Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and even traveled to Chicago. And at one point, they were ranked third in the country among semi-pro teams. Hermie began his coaching career in 1982, thanks to Richie Zink, who asked for help in starting the flag football program. He coached in the program for 36 years, retiring in 2017. For many local families, flag football was the first organized sport that some of their kids played in Dalton. He was their first impression of what a coach could be, and what an impression he made. He treated every child the same, and he gave them all a chance to live out their dream of scoring a touchdown, and usually found a way to make that happen. He had a way that made every child and parent feel special. He was a natural with kids and was quick to give high fives or a hug when needed. He knew how to capture kids' attention, and at that young age, that's hard to do. In talking to family and former players, he was known for his long inspirational speeches at the end of every practice and game, carrying his equipment on the field in his old collegians baseball bag, and his unique way of chewing gum. Not sure what that's about. They still talk about their days playing for him, and the most common quote I heard, "Coach Hermanski, he's awesome. His only fault, he's a Giants fan." Here's Paul's story.
The success of a high school sports program oftentimes is the result of a strong youth program. Football is no exception. Paul Hermanski served as a flag football coach for 34 seasons in the Dalton Youth Football Program. During this time, Coach Hermanski motivated, inspired, and taught hundreds of kids the game of football. Coach Hermanski has always felt that the most rewarding part of coaching youth football is the smile on a kid's face when they score their first touchdown. Paul was awarded 2 very prestigious awards from the Wacona football program. In 1998, he was awarded the Bumps Broderick Memorial Award, and in 2016, the Al Popsy Gerlach Memorial Award, recognizing his incredible contributions to the youth football program.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Coach Paul Hermanski. Coach Al Devereaux. Al was a multi-sport coach at Wacona, as well as a youth swimming and track and field coach for the CRA. When he applied for the Wacona cross-country job, he knew nothing about running. His background was in swimming. He got the job as a cross-country coach for one reason: no one else applied for the job. After his first year coaching, he attended a running camp in Vermont with his daughter, where he learned some methods and different techniques for training runners. His training worked. We'll hear about his successes in his video story, but a highlight included a 93 dual meet win streak, which became a story in the USA Today because it was the longest high school win streak in the entire country at that time. Al turned to running himself and made it part of his own life. In an article written for the Dalton News Record, he was quoted as saying, "I use running as a meditative time. I have more energy when I run, and I can eat what I want." And what a runner he was, winning a national championship in 1983 in the over 40-year-old category, and even had a sponsorship from Nike. He was also on the coaches board for the Green Mountain Running Camp for many years. Because of his inspiration, many of his cross-country and track athletes went on to run in college. His good friend, Jamie Chisholm, a standout runner himself, told me, "Through distance running, Al taught us about ourselves and showed us a world beyond anything that we knew. He took me, a wild child from Hinsdale, and changed my life for the better." Here's his story.
Al Devereaux is an exceptional coach who credits much of his success to the support of his wife and family. Coach Devereaux coached and led the Warriors programs in swimming, gymnastics, track and field, and cross-country running. As a track coach, Al led the women's team to the Berkshire County Championship in 1986. During his time as the cross-country coach, he led his team to 6 straight Western Mass titles from 1982 to 1987 and brought home the Berkshire County Championship every season from 1982 to 1988. Coach Devereaux coached many individual champions and had a 93 dual meet win streak that spanned from November 6, 1981 through his final season in 1988. Coach Devereaux was awarded the MIAA Coaching Award in 1982 and 83, the WBEC Sports Caravan Coach of the Year Award in 1983, and was the MIAA Coach of the Year in 1989.
Please welcome Coach Al Devereaux. Coach Larry Moore. Larry's coaching career began with youth gymnastics teams in 1972. Wacona's teams benefited from his direction years later as they were a premier gymnastics team in the 80s with many individual and team champions. His first year coaching soccer was in 1974. At that time, Wacona was a Division I team, which was a challenging division to be in. They made the tournament that first year, which was difficult because back then, in order to make the tournament, you had to win 70% of your games. Berkshire County was one league. There was no North or South divisions, and they were one of the top 4 teams in the league that year. In the early 80s, Wacona boys soccer was hugely successful because of him. He was a very disciplined coach. He pushed his players to work hard every day and make improvements. He knew how to motivate them, and in turn, he got the most out of them. My brother Jim played for Larry for 3 years, and one of the things that he said that stood out about Larry was that his teams truly became a part of his family. He remembers going to his house for pizza parties, playing video games with his 2 sons, Jim and Tom, and experiencing the warmth and graciousness of his wife, Donna. No other coach at that time did that for a team. Larry continues to give back to our community, running a Baseball in the Berkshires program, which is on display at the Stationery Factory in Dalton. It includes a comprehensive collection of Berkshire County baseball history. During the inaugural year of our CRA Hall of Fame, he began his Sliding into Home program. Because of its success and positive feedback, it has become a part of our Hall of Fame weekend. He has put a tremendous amount of time into that program, highlighting the baseball and this year softball careers of each member of the current class. Thank you, Larry. Here's his story.
A longtime educator in the Central Berkshire Regional School District, Larry Moore coached youth gymnastics in Berkshire County for over 25 years. Many of those gymnasts went on to be individual champions under Moore's direction. Coach Moore also led the Wacona boys soccer program for 10 years. During that time, Coach Moore won over 100 games. He won a Berkshire County title in 1981 and brought home Wacona's first Western Mass title in boys soccer that same year. In 1982, Moore's team went undefeated in the county to capture the Berkshire County Championship. In 1984, Moore's soccer team reached the state championship game, winning a Berkshire County and Western Mass title. Coach Moore was the 1982 WBEC Sports Caravan Coach of the Year and is a member of the Chow Soccer Hall of Fame class of 2007.
Please welcome Coach Larry Moore.
The 1970 Wacona boys basketball team, Western Mass Class S champions. Anyone who considers themselves a fan of high school basketball in Berkshire County knows that the Wacona boys programs have a rich history of successful coaches, of successful teams. 2 of Coach Ed Ladley's teams have already been inducted into the CRA Hall of Fame. Few fans, however, may know that their story, the story of the Wacona boys basketball team, may have said to be begun with the 1970 team coached by Tom Murray. which is being inducted into the Hall of Fame today. Team, defined as a noun, is a group of players forming one side of a competitive game or sport. For the 1970 basketball team, I prefer the definition as a verb, a coming together to achieve a common goal. If you read through the articles written about this team in the Berkshire Eagle, you would see that almost every game highlighted this verb definition, as different players' efforts were written about in detail. The season begins with the second annual Jamboree held at the Boys Club in Pittsfield before an estimated crowd of 1,900 fans as they watched the Warriors jump off to a fast start against PHS, which led Coach Murray to experiment with different combinations so that his players could get used to playing with each other under game conditions. That would prove to be important as the season wore on. Even so, the writer of the article picks Drury as the most likely winner of the league, with PHS and St. Joe as their major competition. Gino Quirk was the team captain, and most articles wrote that he directed the play on the court. He would eventually be named the MVP of the Western Mass Tournament. In an email to the Hall of Fame committee, Gino noted that this was a, quote, a team without a star who just did our best to play together. And that is what the newspaper articles about this team reported as well. The season opener featured the headline, Mike Fox leads the Wacona Warriors to a win over Monument Mountain. Fox scored 17 points in that win and pulled down 12 rebounds. Later in the season, an article reports, without irony, that the Wacona team gained sole occupancy of 5th place in the Northern Division League with a close win over St. Joe North Adams. In that game, the opposition keyed on Gino Quirk, which led Tom O'Connor to score a game-high 18 points. In a win against Lee, you can again read that Tom O'Connor carried the team to victory, scoring 20 points. In a victory over Taconic, the article read, the second quarter was featured by the play of Dave Mixer, the league's best 6th man, and Glenn Campbell was high scorer with 18 points. In a game against Amherst, I read that the Warriors had 4 players in double figures, including Fox, Mixer, O'Connor, and Brian Pooper, who also pulled down 15 rebounds. The article included games in which key players had fouled out or were injured and did not play at all, yet the team prevailed. In the final championship game against St. Joe Pittsfield, a team that had twice beaten the Warriors during the regular season, the idea of team as a verb is indeed evident, as although the headline read, Quirk stars in Class S win, the body of the article reveals this. Glenn Campbell topped Wacona scoring with 20 points. Quirk added 19, and Brian Pooper had 15 points and did an outstanding job rebounding while giving away 5 inches to his opponent. Tom O'Connor also added 10 points for the winners as they clinched Wacona's first Western Mass basketball championship. Here is this team story.
The 1970 Wacona boys basketball team, led by Coach Tom Murray and assistant coaches Chuck O'Haggerty and Fran Riordan, brought home Wacona's first Western Mass championship. Heading into the tournament as a number 4 seed in Western Mass, they faced Palmer in the opening round, and after scoring 30 points in the fourth quarter, they went on to win the game 83-71. In the semifinal round, they beat Granby High School 71-53 to secure their spot in the Western Mass Championship game against local rival St. Joe High School. Before a standing room only crowd at the Pittsfield Boys Club, Wacona shocked St. Joe and captured the school's first Western Mass title with a 72-64 victory. Glenn Campbell and Brian Pooper were members of the All-Western Mass tournament team, and CRA Hall of Famer Gino Quirk was the tournament's MVP. The team finished with a record of 15 wins and 8 losses.
Collecting the hardware today for this team is assistant coach Fran Riordan, Glenn Campbell, Dave Mixer, and Brian Pooper. Others who are not able to attend, Coach Tom Murray, assistant coach Chuck O'Haggerty, Tom Toski, Dave Filio, Lou Algroni, Tim Whitney, Chris Hall, Mike Fox, John Clapper, Gene Quirk, and Tom O'Connor. Come on up, Warriors. The 1981 Wacona boys soccer team, Western Mass Division II soccer champions. This team, coached by now Hall of Famer Larry Moore, helped establish the soccer program at Wacona as a force to be reckoned with. Led by co-captains Vin Higuera and Rich Bissell, they made some noise against perennial powers in Berkshire County and the Western Mass soccer community. Pittsfield High's soccer team had won 7 straight Northern Division championships prior to this 1981 soccer season. This Wacona team broke that stranglehold and also went on to end the Connecticut Valley's domination of the Western Mass tournament that had lasted 6 years by beating Smith Academy in the final game. This team included 6 of the top 20 scorers in Berkshire County that year, including Hall of Famer Ricky Kovacs. But in the end, it was the old sports adage attributed to Bear Bryant that seems to ring true. Offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships. A Springfield newspaper ran an article before the championship matchup between Wacona and Smith Academy, touting the importance of the goalie to the team's success. They heaped praise on the Smith Academy goalie, saying that their hopes rested with him and that the team had been a force to be reckoned with all season. The coach said they wouldn't be in this game without him. The article would go on to praise the Wacona offense, the attack of Kovacs, Chris Dumas, and Mike Cayley, but they never once mentioned the Wacona defense. Perhaps the scoring prowess of the Wacona team had hid the strength of their defense as they outscored their opponents 57-9 during the regular season. Coach Moore, however, did praise his defense after the championship game, including goalie Vin Higuera, saying, "He's the best goalie I've seen around this year. He had a super season." And the Berkshire Eagle article written about the game stated that the key performance of the game came from the fullback line of John King, Rich Bissell, and Dennis Wendling. Higuera had 11 saves in the 3-0 shutout victory against Smith Academy, a team that had averaged 4 goals every game during the regular season. Here is their story.
The 1981 Wacona boys soccer team, led by CRA Hall of Fame coach Larry Moore and assistant coach Jim West, captured the Northern Division title behind the strong play of all Berkshire players: Vin Higuera, Tom Whitestone, John King, Rick Kovacs, and Chris Dumas. In the Western Mass tournament, Wacona beat Hampshire in the opening round 3-1 before knocking off St. Mary's 2-1 in the Western Mass semifinals. Wacona would go on to win Wacona's first Western Mass championship in boys soccer by defeating Smith Academy 3-0. The 1981 Wacona boys soccer team finished with a record of 14 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie. They scored 60 goals on the year and only allowed 10.
Players and managers who were unable to attend today: Herb Ulmer, Howard LaHoyt, Jim Duquette, Dennis Wendling, Wynn Brayman, John Fenn, Lou Peralt, Tom Whitestone, Mark Cormier, and the managers Denise Cayley, Cheryl Balk, and Aaron Kelly. But here today, I hope I've got everybody because I think some people snuck in, but Coach Larry Moore and assistant coach Jim West, along with players Vin Higuera, Dan McMahon, Mike Cayley, Ed Farley, Tom Hazen, Rich Bissell, Chris Dumas, Rick Kovacs, and Kevin Bueno. Come on up. The 2011 Wacona softball team, Northern Division, Western Mass, and state champions. You can applaud that. A few of my many Wacona softball t-shirts boast that this program has a tradition of excellence. This tradition was capped off in the 2011 season when the team won Berkshire County's first ever state championship in softball. Coach Dustin Belcher's team finished the season with a record of 24-1, but the journey to the title was not an easy one. Having won the Western Mass title the previous season meant that this team did have some experience with long, grueling seasons, but nothing could have prepared them for the test that they would face playing the Western Mass final game and the state semifinals game on back-to-back days, and then 2 days later, playing in an epic state finals game that went 11 innings. The Warriors beat Hampshire in the Western Mass Finals 8-0 in a game that saw pitcher Sam Bergner fire a one-hit shutout with 10 strikeouts and no walks. She would face 18 batters through 6 innings, retiring 17, and the 18th getting picked off, foreshadowing other things to come. One batter reached on an error in the 7th, but Bergner retired the next 3 in order to seal the victory and the Western Mass title for the 2nd year in a row. The team would then have to travel the next day to face Leicester in the state semifinals. The Warriors would rely on defense in this game as they gave up a pair of hits in the first inning. But catcher Gabby Lavinio took care of 3 of the 7 players to reach base that day as she threw out 2 runners stealing and picked a 3rd off of first base. Solid defense took care of 2 others as Kelsey Army and Sarah Hamilton put together a stunning double play in the 6th inning to take care of 2 more base runners. They would go on to win 2-0. The state title game 2 days later would not be settled in the usual 7 innings as the Warriors battled Burlington. The Warriors did jump out to a 1-0 lead in the first inning, but the Red Devils put runners on in 5 consecutive innings, and the Warriors found themselves down 3-1 at the end of 5. The Warriors tied the game on a 2-run single by Lauren Hubin in the 6th, and Bergner didn't allow a hit over the last 5 innings. The opposition had only 1 base runner that reached on an error in the 10th. The winning run came in the 11th when Shannon Lucier's RBI single scored Sarah Hamilton from 3rd base. Hamilton had reached on a leadoff single and moved to 3rd following 2 errors. Hamilton, another inductee into the Hall of Fame today, had 3 hits on the day and scored twice. The traditional championship bus ride home took a detour that day to bring the team to Coach Pass West's son's wedding, which had been scheduled long before the team ever dreamed of being in the state finals. I guess that even in Dalton, there are some things more important than sports. When he got on the bus to celebrate with the team, Coach West remembers Lauren Hubin exclaiming, "We couldn't have done it without you, Coach." "Oh yeah, we just did." One of the mottos of this Wacona program has always been, leave the program better than you found it. This team certainly did accomplish this and more, and the tradition continues. The tradition of excellence continues. Here is their story.
The 2011 Wacona softball team, led by head coach Dustin Belcher and assistants Mike Cady, Pat West, Maggie Rivers, and Kim Wells, captured the Northern Division title behind the strong play of seniors Sarah Hamilton, Lauren Hubin, Megan Lucier, and Sam Bergner. Bergner and Hamilton were joined by sophomore Gabby Lavinio as members of the All-Berkshire team. In the Western Mass tournament, the Warriors defeated Athol and Hoosick Valley before beating Hampshire 8-0 to win the Western Mass championship. They were known for their incredible defense and showed off in the state semifinals when they beat Leicester High School 2-0. The state championship game showcased the heart and determination of this team. Trailing late in the game, the Warriors came back to tie the game and force extra innings. In the top of the 11th inning, Captain Sarah Hamilton scored the winning run off a base hit from the sophomore Shannon Lucier. The Warriors would hold on to win the game 4-3. The team finished with a record of 24 wins and 1 loss and is the only softball team in Berkshire County history to win a state championship.
Some of the players not able to attend today are Kelsey Army, Rachel Brennan, Becca Grunow, Tiffany Robinson, Bailey McAfee, and assistant coach Maggie Rivers. Here's the team here today. Coach Dustin Belcher, assistant coaches Pat West, Mike's not here either, sorry, and Kim Wells. along with players Sarah Hamilton, Laura Huben, Sam Bergner, Eli King, Gabby Lavinio, Carly Farrell, Shannon Lucier, Aaron Grogan, Megan Lucier, and Bethany McBain. Come on up.
Okay, before I begin, I want to congratulate the coaches, contributors, and teams who were inducted here today. Really special people involved in all three categories. I also want to thank Dustin, and I know this has been done before, for a mountain of hard work to pull this all together against constant headwinds that he handled with ease. Tommy O'Connor also worked for the past 2 months in the Hall of Fame, and we owe him a great debt as well. Eric Payson worked for the last 2 months on it, and we owe him a great debt. So thank you to all of them. On the plaques to my senior soccer players, Aaron Grogan, there's a bunch of them in here. It says, "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." We should see a lot of smiles in this room today. I have the honor of introducing 10 of the best athletes in the history of Dalton and Wacona Regional High School. First, I want to say that nothing I do here can do justice to the kind of athletes who will be inducted in a few minutes. There isn't enough time. They were that good. When you read about them in the program or watch the video, I'm sure you'll agree with me. All Berkshire, all Western Mass, all state, all American honors, state championships, WBEC Player of the Year, other halls of fame, and other honors only begin to tell their stories. I know you've seen the program, so you have a sense of how good these athletes are. But they're not just athletes. They're quality people. You don't get as good as they are without dedication and focus they possess. We have the opportunity to tell a little of their stories today, with which the money we raise will allow kids to be able to tell their stories in the future. I know that's been said, but I want to reiterate it. And we also have an interesting demographic today. We have 3 cousins being inducted. This is almost off the subject entirely. 3 cousins, and then one person is the godfather of somebody else being inducted. It's a great little small town. Okay, the first inductee. I actually know quite a bit about this guy, Don Cormier. I do know a lot, but it turns out I didn't know everything about his athletic ability. I did know that he grew up in Dalton, that he was an amazing athlete, married one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And full disclosure, we've been related for 64 years. Every sport that Don played seemed to be easy for him. He was a natural in everything. In addition to baseball, he's excellent at golf, cornhole, darts, everything he tries, he's good. In high school, Donnie was a football player and played basketball in the winter, pretty much the same way every other kid in town played sports. But baseball was something special for him. He grew up in a real baseball town, playing in the local leagues, and very soon, people began to recognize he had a golden right arm. In an era where the average player in Dalton was far above average, Don stood out. Craig, is that true? The average player in Dalton was far above average. He was the youngest athlete selected to go with the Dalton adult team to play in the national tournament in Dayton, Ohio, and at 14 or 15 was their star pitcher. He was a repeat All-Berkshire and All-Western Mass star and was also a leader on the Tyler Aces. He was also selected to pitch on the All-State team at Fenway Park. He was noticed. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. I can tell you that Donnie's one of the nicest people you will ever meet. And as he looks back over his athletic career, instead of talking about statistics or other accomplishments, he only mentions all the good people he met along the way. And here is his story.
Don Cormier was a 1952 graduate of Dalton High School who lettered in football and baseball. In the junior season of his 3 years on the baseball team, he was 9-0 on the year and helped to lead the team to the Berkshire County Championship with a 10-2 win over Pittsfield High School. Don was 9-0 on the year with a 0.30 ERA. He was not only an all-state pitcher, but also the leading hitter in Berkshire County. Cormier's dominance in baseball led to his All-Berkshire and All-Western Mass honors in 1951 and 1952. After high school, Cormier signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates and played in the Appalachian League in 1953. Don is a member of the Unico Baseball Hall of Fame and the New England Baseball Hall of Fame.
Tom Garvey. Tom Garvey was a crossover player from the old Dalton High School to the whatever we're calling the middle Wacona. And he didn't waste any time proving he was an excellent player. He has the honor of being the first player to score a touchdown in the new Wacona, and he scored 3 more that day for a total of 26 of the 30 points scored. The Berkshire Eagles said, historians in future decades, that's us, may wonder who played the first game of football on the Wacona Regional High School field. Many who witnessed the assault on Adams High School by fleet-footed Tom Garvey and company will remember Saturday, September 23rd, 1961, as a day of supremacy for the new school. It's almost 60 years to the day from today. The guys I hung around with in 5th grade would go to the high school on Saturday afternoons and watch the football team, and Tom was a true standout. I know it's not fair to Tom, but we thought he would score every time he had the ball. And we were surprised when he didn't, and disappointed. You know, how could he not score? That's a pretty big compliment coming from little kids. He was a true hero to us. The All-Berkshire and All-Western Mass honors are a pretty big deal for anyone, anytime, but is even more amazing because everything was one division. Pittsfield High alone had 3,600 students in 3 grades. That's the kind of school he was competing with. To break into the All-Western Mass roster was quite a feat and demonstrates how good he really was. I love having the opportunity to introduce one of my heroes from the early 60s. And here is Tom Garvey's story.
Tom Garvey was a talented athlete and a member of the class of 1962 at Wacona High School. Garvey played at both Dalton High School and Wacona, lettering in football and basketball at both schools. In the final home game of the regular season, Garvey led all scorers with 17 points, helping to lead the basketball team to a 13-7 record in his senior year. On the football field, Garvey dominated for 2 seasons. He was 3rd in scoring in Berkshire County in 1960 and 2nd in the county in 1961. The talented back was a member of the All-Berkshire team in 1961 and the All-Berkshire and All-Western Mass teams in 1962. Tom served as the captain of the football team in his senior year and scored the first touchdown on the current Wacona football field. Tom is also a member of the Monday Morning Quarterback Club Hall of Fame.
Fran Murowski. Buckle up, Fran. I spoke at the party for Fran Morowski when he retired from the Central Berkshire Regional. That night, I hoped for Franny that the things we said about him, about how we had grown older together, could be somehow, that night, take him back and help him grow younger for just that wisp of time. I hope we can do the same today. I've known Fran Morowski for over 60 years, and I don't believe I ever called him Fran. He was always, and still is, known as Mouse. Mouse. But there is, and never was, anything mousy about him. He was happy. Pretty happy. When the game was over, he was everybody's best friend on the opposing team, maybe except for St. Joe in 1968 basketball. He's a fun guy. However, he was and is intense. And while he's one of the nicest people you will ever meet, you did not want to be on a team he was playing against. He never played dirty. He truly did not. But there were a lot of people carried off the field when he played. anything, including golf, cornhole, pitch. Kevin, his son, told me that his father threw at him in a father-son all-star game. Surprised to hear that. You'll see in a minute many of his accomplishments, awards and recognitions, and it won't begin to cover the athlete he was. He was a force on the soccer field as a scoring leader in 1967 in Berkshire County. He would have been a great football player as well. Jim O'Connor tried every day to recruit him away from soccer and on to football. He was the MVP in Berkshire County basketball and had an amazing 4 years. He might have had 2,000 points if there had been a three-point line when he was playing. However, and he may disagree, but I'll bet he doesn't, I thought he would become a Major League Baseball player. There's no question he had the tools. He had a monster arm, he was fast, but most of all, he could hit. To win Wacona's first Berkshire County championship in 1969, Franny hit a ball well over 400 feet, and that's what the paper said, but I think it was closer to 500 feet, out of Renfro Field in Adams against Pittsfield High School. He was also a hero on the collegians. He was a leader who could load the team bus on his back and just carry him to a win. And here is his story.
Fran Murowski was a 1969 graduate and a standout athlete who played soccer, basketball, and baseball for Wacona High School, a 3-year starter and captain in all 3 sports. In soccer, Fran was part of a Berkshire County championship team and was Berkshire County's leading scorer in 1967. In basketball, he was selected the MVP and set the single-game scoring record with 35 points in a game in 1969. That spring, he led the baseball team to their first Berkshire County championship and were Western Mass finalists. After his high school playing days, he competed for the Dalton Collegians, where he was selected team MVP in 1974, hitting .394 for the season. Fran is a member of the Chow Soccer Hall of Fame, Unico Baseball Hall of Fame, and New England Baseball and Basketball Hall of Fame.
Fran Morowski. Mike Callahan. While Mike Callahan is best known for his baseball prowess, I'll bet many here don't know he was an amazing basketball player as well. He was a 1977 Honorable Mention All-Berkshire and a 1978 First Team All-Berkshire, as well as an All-Western Mass player that year. Article after article in the Berkshire Eagle bears out how strong he was. Just to give you some idea of how much of a force he was on the basketball court, the Berkshire Eagle article of February 22nd, 1978, talks about the game-high 26 points he scored and the 20 rebounds he ripped down. And that was the 3rd time in the season that he scored over 20 points and had over 20 rebounds in a game. How often does that happen? Not very often. As a result of his basketball skills, he was recruited by the University of Bridgewater and was involved in the Division II 1979 Final Four. Fran Riordan, one of his high school coaches, said, Mike Callahan was a force on the court. He was strong, talented, gamer, and it was no surprise at all when he was recruited to play for Bridgeport. He was a real treat to coach. I wish I had had him when I was coaching baseball as well. But as I mentioned, Mike is better known for his baseball skills. In high school, he was an amazing pitcher on a team filled with great players. Because the seasons overlapped when he went to Bridgeport, he didn't play baseball. But he transferred to North Adams State and took it up again. Obviously, he had maintained his skills because he was a star there and a star with the Dalton Collegians. People noticed him, too, leading up to his being drafted by the Houston Astros, where he played for 4 years. And here is his story.
Mike Callahan was an outstanding athlete for Wacona Regional High School, earning all-league honors in basketball and baseball throughout his high school career. In 1978, Callahan's senior year, he had 3 basketball games in which he scored over 20 points and had more than 20 rebounds. Mike was elected a member of the All-Berkshire and All-Western Mass teams in basketball. After high school, he was a member of the basketball team at Bridgeport University. In 1979, his team reached the NCAA Final Four, competing for a national championship. Callahan would later play baseball at North Adams State College. In 1981, he was drafted in the 16th round of the amateur draft by the Houston Astros and had a 4-year career in the minor leagues.
Mike Callahan. Mark Cayley. Mark was and is a fierce competitor. Larry Bird said, "It makes me sick seeing a guy just watching a ball go out of bounds." Well, he wouldn't have been sick around Mark Cayley. That pretty much describes him as a player. It was his natural skill and his overwhelming will to win that made him good, but it was his leadership quality that made him great. He believed every player on the team had a role, and if they could execute at that level, and no more, the team would win. That's a strong approach, whether you're a captain, which he was, on the team, or the coach of that team, which he was for a long time. Because of this, in addition to being a great athlete, he was an excellent coach for the girls' soccer team and the boys and girls' basketball teams at Wacona. He's a 3-sport star athlete, recognized by his coaches and fellow teammates because he was one of the rare 3-sport captains at Wacona, and if he could have played golf and baseball, he would have been a 4-star All-Berkshire player because he was one of the best hitters and pitchers in Western Mass. All-state soccer. Think of this honor. 14 players made the All-State team from Massachusetts. Mark Cayley's one of them. As a golfer, he had a remarkable day in a tri-match against Drury and Leigh, whose teams had the supposedly 2 best golfers in the county. Mark was chosen to tee off against those guys and had one of the best rounds a high school golfer has ever had at Wacona. At 17 years old, he shot a 74 and beat both of them. He's still a very good golfer. Mark has given back in many ways. He's been an excellent coach in soccer and basketball, boys and girls, at Wacona, and was a great umpire, please come back, and is one of the most respected soccer referees in the state. And here is his story.
Mark Cayley lettered in golf, soccer, and basketball at Wacona High School. A 1985 graduate of Wacona, he served as captain of all 3 sports during his senior year. As a top golfer for Wacona, he helped to lead the team to a Berkshire County championship and the Warriors' first Western Mass title in golf in 1985. In basketball, Cayley was a member of the All-Berkshire and All-Western Mass teams. In 1985, he led the Warriors to the Western Mass Finals and averaged over 13 points per game. Selected to play in the All-Star Game, Cayley was named the game's most valuable player. On the soccer field, Mark was a member of the All-Berkshire, All-Western Mass, and All-State teams. He was also named Berkshire County MVP in 1984 when he helped to lead his team to a Berkshire County and Western Mass title and was a state finalist in Division II. After high school, he attended North Adams State College and was a member of the soccer team there.
Mark Cayley. Cara, Cornell, Keegan. The class of '87 is going back to back here. Cara Cornell Keegan was part of that amazing group of athletes that graduated from Wacona in 1987, and she did her job to make them stand out. She was a 3-sport athlete: soccer, swimming, and softball. You were a swimmer? I'm just reading this, I'm surprised. She did miss her senior soccer season because of an injury, but was there to root on her teammates who won the state championship. Her softball team also went to the state finals in 1987. As we all know, she was a swimmer. She was a swimmer, but not for the girls' team. She didn't swim on the girls' swim team because there wasn't one. She had to qualify for Western Mass on the boys' teams against the fastest boys swimmers in the state. She qualified all 4 years for Western Mass against the boys. No small achievement. She was recruited to swim at Hartwick College, where she's been celebrating all weekend with her buddies. She broke records. She was the state champion in the freestyle event, qualified for states all 4 years, was the MVP for 2 years in a row, and went into the Hartwick Hall of Fame as the youngest player ever inducted, and where she was a 4-year All-American. You should also know that she does not live in the past. Her glory days were special, but it's hard to pull information out of her. Connie and I have been friends with her for about 25 years, and I didn't know half of the stuff that was on the list that I saw. She would much prefer to talk about the successes of Donovan and Isabel, her kids, or to talk about the achievements of her students at Wacona. And here is her story.
Cara Cornell Keegan was a 1987 graduate of Wacona Regional High School who lettered in soccer, swimming, and softball. Cara was a member of the 1987 Wacona softball team that won the Northern Division title and the Western Central Mass Championship. Her team was state finalists in Division II that season. In swimming, Keegan qualified for the Western Mass Tournament all 4 years and was considered one of the top swimmers in Berkshire County. After high school, she attended Hartwick College, where she was an All-American swimmer all 4 years, breaking several swimming records, qualifying for states, and winning the state championship in the freestyle event. Cara was selected the MVP of the Hartwick College swimming and diving team in 1989 and 90. In 1991, Keegan was awarded the very prestigious Mark Beal Banks Award and was a 2003 inductee into the Hartwick College Hall of Fame.
Cara Cornell Keegan. Kim Reynolds Wells. Kim Wells was part of that extraordinarily talented class of 1987 with Cara from Wacona. State champions in soccer, strong basketball team, and state finals in softball. Kim was a huge part of that success. She played soccer and softball and led both teams to record seasons. She was named county MVP and unheard of twice in softball, and she was an all-division midfielder in soccer. It's no surprise that her teams would do well with this talented leader in the middle of the field for both teams. I've known Kim for a long time, and I think the quality of her quiet leadership is her greatest asset. She was and is a leader. I have seen her play. I coached against her in soccer when she played for Wacona, and I wasn't coaching Wacona at the time, and have coached with her in softball. Nothing phases her. Sam, is that true? Nothing phases her? Do things phase you? Sometimes? Her calm, even-tempered demeanor when she was playing and when she was coaching allowed her to achieve great results. This personality trait obviously rubs off because her players and her own children seem to handle life quite nicely in calm, reasonable ways. I think Tim would agree that clearly they take after their mother. I told you. It was also recognized by others. She won the County Sportsmanship Award her senior year, and she lives by the creed, the praise you give yourself isn't worth having. Even though she would never tell you that, and she gives praise to all who helped her to achieve her success. Kim said, we won the state championship in soccer because of Mary Langendorf. Well, I coached against that team, and I would disagree. Mary Langendorf was a great player, but so were you, and so were a lot of players on that team. Mike Cooney and Boog Powell at Wacona and Judy Goff and Bill Bedard at AIC influenced her greatly, according to her. She also said Wendy Knable and Mary Ann Lombardi inspired her to be great. A true leader and a great player is never afraid to share the credit. And here is her story.
Kim Reynolds Wells was a star soccer and softball player for Wacona High School. Kim was a starting midfielder on the 1986 undefeated state championship soccer team. She earned a spot on the All-Northern Division team her senior year. In softball, Wells was a captain and helped to lead the softball team to a Western Central Mass championship in 1987. As the starting pitcher, Wells had a career record of 50 and 15, including her incredible senior year stats, which included a record of 20 and 2, 153 strikeouts, and a 1.10 ERA. Wells earned the Berkshire County Umpires Award, was a member of the All-Western Mass teams in 1986 and 87, and was also selected the MVP of Berkshire County both seasons. After high school, Kim attended AIC on a softball scholarship, and she played for 4 seasons. Kim is a 2018 inductee to the Unico Softball Hall of Fame.
Kim Wells. Brian Mcgovern. Brian Mcgovern was an exceptional athlete who knew just what it took to win games for whatever team he was on. He was a classic big shot athlete in high school. He was a 3-year starting quarterback on the football team, where he was an All-Berkshire player his junior and senior year. He was Berkshire County MVP in basketball and led the team to their first title in 1993 in the brutal North Division. And to give his senior year perfect symmetry, he was named MVP in baseball, where he went 8-0 as a pitcher and had an ERA of 1.6, batted .393, and over the course of 3 years in baseball, had a record of 20 and 4 with a 1.65 earned run average. In short, there wasn't a sport he couldn't play. He probably would have been the MVP in soccer that year if he had played that sport. However, talent doesn't always translate into wins. Brian Mcgovern used his talent and his competitive spirit to propel Wacona into one of the winningest years the school has ever had. I remember on March 6 of 1993 watching Brian in the Western Mass final game against a very strong Greenfield team who had one of the best players in the state, Angelo Thomas. Coach knows him quite well. I don't want to diminish the contribution of anyone else on the team, but Brian willed that team to a win. And I wish everybody had been there to see it. Angelo Thomas was, and is, I think, 6'7", and talented. He wasn't just tall, he was talented. Wacona had a hard time scoring inside, so they went outside for threes. You know, they were on the three-point line. And then they were farther out because Greenfield followed them out. Greenfield followed, and eventually, Brian was shooting and making threes from midcourt. Brian also induced Angelo Thomas to foul out at a crucial moment in the fourth quarter that led to the win. Angelo Thomas had a foul, and then, surprisingly, immediately, he had his 5th foul, another foul. As you can see, there was a lot more to Brian Mcgovern than just skill. Here is his story.
Brian Mcgovern was a standout 3-sport athlete in football, basketball, and baseball. As a football player, Brian was the starting quarterback for 3 years and was selected to the All-Berkshire team his junior and senior year. In basketball, Brian helped to lead the Warriors to a Western Mass title in 1993, leading the state finals. Brian was the MVP of Berkshire County and Western Massachusetts. On the baseball diamond, Brian pitched 3 years for the varsity team with a career record of 20 and 3 and hitting over 300 each year. Mcgovern was a member of the 1991 Western Mass Championship team and was the Western Mass MVP that season. In 1993, Brian was named the Berkshire County MVP in baseball. Brian's senior year, his teams had a combined record of 48 and 9.
Accepting for Brian is Sandy Mcgovern, his mother. Greg Knoll. Greg is an amazing athlete from one of the best and most athletic families in town. His brother and sister were great multi-sport athletes, and his father, Jim, was talented in every sport he played as well. However, it's not about you guys. Today is all about Greg. As a sophomore, He was the #1 tennis player on the team, but it's as a basketball player that he'll be remembered. He was one of the purest shooters in the history of Wacona basketball, as Joanne alluded to earlier. I think he made 99 foul shots in a row at one point in the gym at Wacona. My arm would be too tired to continue. His individual accomplishments are hard to believe, but his team records say a lot about the kind of player he was. The Wacona basketball team was 2-18 when he was a freshman, but he brought the team back to the Western Mass Finals his junior and senior years. His senior team in 2003 was 20-3 overall and won the extremely competitive Northern Berkshire Division. One big reason these teams were so good, though, is because of Greg. He was inducted into the New England Basketball Hall of Fame. He was the Berkshire County MVP his senior year. He scored 1,204 points, which ranks him third all-time at Wacona, and he was named to the Eagle All-Berkshire County team in both his junior and senior years. And here's his story.
Greg Knoll was a 2003 graduate of Wacona Regional High School. Greg was a 3-year starter on the basketball team and helped to lead them to the postseason each year. Western Mass finalist in 2002 and 2003, Knoll served as the team's leading scorer. He was the captain of the team in 2003 that won the Northern Division title. Greg was a pure shooter and averaged over 22 points per game his senior season. He was a member of the All-Northern Division team in 2001 and an All-Berkshire selection in 2002 and 2003, and was Berkshire County's most valuable player in 2003. Knoll finished his career with 1,204 points, making him the third all-time leading scorer in boys basketball at Wacona. Knoll was also inducted into the New England Basketball Hall of Fame.
Greg Knoll. Sarah Hamilton. I've known Sarah for a long time, and I have to say, everything Aaron Robb said about you is true. I'm going to play it straight with you. She was a student, a player on teams that I coached, and she coached with us in soccer at Wacona. I found her to be independent, honest, fiercely competitive, a leader, extremely smart, and could be all of these with a smile on her face. She was never psyched out in any game I saw her compete in. Her accomplishments are hard to believe. In her 12 seasons at Wacona, her teams won 8 Berkshire County championships, 7 Western Mass championships, 3 Central Mass titles, and 1 amazing state championship. Wish I'd been there to see it. She was all Berkshire in soccer, basketball, and softball. She won the Sportsmanship Award in 2011 from the softball umpires, and that same year, she was named the county's Female Athlete of the Year by the WBEC Sports Caravan. In the spring of 2011, our softball team, as you have just heard, went 24-1 and won the state title. Actually, I'm not going to play it entirely. We did talk about this yesterday. The one game we lost that year was against Hoosick on a very cold day in April. It was a game that Sarah had to come out of because she hurt her hand. The only time I ever saw her have to leave a game in high school, in any case, because of an injury. She was such a key part of that team that I believe if she had been in the game, we would have been 25-0. I'm thrilled she's entering the Hall of Fame this year in her first year of eligibility. She's our youngest inductee ever. A first for us, because that means she could be inducted with her teammates from the softball team who entered as a team, and along with Kim Reynolds Wells, one of her coaches. And here is her story.
Sarah Hamilton, a 2011 graduate of Wacona High School, lettered in soccer, basketball, and softball all 4 years and served as a captain of all 3 sports. In soccer, Hamilton helped to lead the Warriors to 2 Western Mass titles in 2008 and 2009. In both years, they appeared in the state finals. In basketball, her team captured the Western Mass Championship in 2011. On the softball field, she was part of the Western Mass Championship team in 2010 and brought home a state championship in 2011. Hamilton received all Berkshire honors in all 3 sports. She was the Berkshire County Umpires Association Award winner and the WBEC Sports Caravan Female Athlete of the Year. During her time with Wacona, she was a part of over 200 wins, helped to capture 4 Western Mass titles and the state championship, making her one of the most successful female athletes in the school's history.
Sarah Hamilton.
Let's have a nice hand for all our inductees this afternoon. Before we wrap up here, I just want to say to all our inductees, no matter how much time passes, your story will continue to be part of our community and continue to be celebrated at the CRA and the Hall of Fame room. Thank you for all that you have done to help create the incredible legacy in our sports program. Once again, congratulations to our class of 2021, and thank you to all of our committees, volunteers, sponsors, Silverwhip Media, and Wacona Country Club for hosting us today. And I would just like to ask that all inductees on their way out, there's a gift for you on the table on the way out, and I'd like to have all the inductees meet over by the first tee for a group photo of our class of 2021. Congratulations, and have a great night. Thank you.